To succeed in the rapidly growing fintech and robo-advisory industries, it's not enough to merely have technical expertise for your company or just have really good algorithms. To succeed, you need to be able to have a strong connection with your user, providing them a unique integrated experience and value adds that will make sure that they stay with you and that your company can grow. This is the issue that your company, Wealthfront, faces today, and it's the issue that we are happy to help you with. Good morning, my name is Marco, and with me are Darla, John, and Chelsea, and again, we're happy to help you with this case. Before we move forward, let's take a step back and look at the critical context that drives this issue. We know that your company is a pioneer within the robo-advisory services industry, with over $5 billion worth of assets under management. The reason you got to this success was by providing accessibility in two ways. First, because you use an algorithm to plot your investment profiles and not relying on human investment managers, you've been able to lower costs and fees for your customers, allowing them to stay with you longer. But secondly, you've also provided an unprecedented amount of transparency in terms of your algorithms and in terms of your profiles. And this is what has made you a pioneer and a leader in this industry. Unfortunately, your growth is currently declining. In fact, you are now at 50% of the AUM of your closest competitor. This is due to a rising strength in your competitors, both from new startups in the robo-advisory segment and from traditional financial services that are expanding into this industry as well. Given this, our case question is extremely clear. How can Wealthfront accelerate growth to regain leadership within the fintech industry and get back to that pioneer and leadership position? To answer this question, we have two key issues that we'd like to talk about. First is how we can improve your competitiveness within your core business, which is your robo-advisory segment, faced with your high level of competitors. But secondly, what are your other opportunities for growth? What is the next step for you as a pioneer company? And I'd like to hand you over to my teammates who will discuss these two issues.
The first question for our analysis is how your company can actually boost its competitiveness in its core business. To answer this question, we've conducted a competitor analysis where we analyzed what exactly your competitors are doing and why your company isn't growing as fast as these competitors, even if you've been the pioneer in the robo-advisory services. So first, we conducted an analysis of your company, Wealthfront, and who you are targeting. We understand that your company is actually targeting the segment that we call techies. These techies are the Silicon Valley entrepreneurs that are very tech-focused and have low trust for the financial advisors of Wall Street because they believe that these financial advisors have very high commission fees and have low transparency. With that, your company actually offers them purely robot services and at the same time has more transparency, particularly on how your algorithm works, which is presented upfront in your platform. But we believe that this market, since this does consist of early adopters, is particularly small and saturated versus the market that your competitors are actually targeting. Your competitors, such as Betterment, are actually targeting a segment that we call the more conventional segment. The conventional segment consists of middle-aged investors that value long-term relationships with their financial advisors. They're very used to traditional ways of investing, and they have medium to high experience in terms of investing. Thus, they value the human and personal connections that financial advisors of Wall Street present to them. So currently, this is being tapped by your competitors, but the reason why your competitors are actually growing much faster than your company is because this segment is actually relatively bigger and also has stronger loyalty to their financial advisors compared to the market that you currently target. So overall, Wealthfront is losing to competitors because they are tapping because these competitors are actually targeting a larger segment compared to your company. But then we also found a particularly huge opportunity for your company to actually win against these competitors. And this is through the opportunity to actually cater to an untapped younger segment that has an equally large size as the ones that your competitors currently target. We call this untapped segment the new age segment, which consists of young employees who are actually very familiar with basic mutual funds, UITFs, and bonds. they actually seek convenience because they're very young. However, they're actually willing to invest in they're actually willing to engage in investments with higher returns, but they're particularly overwhelmed by the process since they're more familiar with simply basic forms of investment. So currently, this is not being tapped by your competitors, but we believe that with your robo-advisory services and the automation that you provide, you have the huge opportunity to tap this market. Now, how exactly are you going to do this? I'll turn you over to Chelsea for her to actually flesh out the needs of this target market.
Yeah, thank you, Darla. So now we look at the needs in more detail. We have identified 4 major needs of this segment. First is education, next is low cost, and then reassurance and transparency. Currently, your company is already doing very well in terms of providing low-cost services, as well as providing them with high transparency in terms of how their money is being invested. However, we see as per the X marks, in terms of education and reassurance, there is room and an opportunity for us to actually improve. So for education, these new age investors, they're not very experienced yet with investing. So they really want to learn, and because they're also very wary of just going in and investing all their money, all their hard-earned money into like a fund that they're not sure of. They actually want experts and they want advice to be able to know where they can best place their money in. As for reassurance, currently we're relying on a purely robot-based services. So with this, it's not going to work with your new age investors if you're just going to do it purely with robots, because they're seeking for this human interaction in case that things go wrong. They want to have someone there in order to reassure them, give them human advice. They want something that's more personal and with a human touch. So with this, we see that there is an opportunity for your company to integrate a human touch in critical areas of education and reassurance services in order to cater to the needs of the market.
Now that we have already established in which areas your company can focus on, let's now answer the question of how exactly can we do this. And in order to sustain growth of your company, we have analyzed this in the context of the cash management cycle of an individual investor, which we believe starts from the moment of the receipt of income. From there, the individual investor decides how much money to invest and to save, which further extends to the payment of debts and bills. And finally, even includes the management and forecasting of the budget for the next month or for the next few periods. And from here, we see that your company currently caters to only the investment stage of the individual investor. From here, we see opportunities to further add value to the other aspects or stages of this cash management cycle. Particularly, we see that there's an opportunity to even capture them from the inception or from the moment that they receive income up to the moment that they actually manage or forecast their budget whenever they need to pay certain bills or debts.
So overall, we've identified the key issues that are plaguing your company. Your company focuses on a purely automated cycle with no human intervention or interaction at all, and it's limited only to the investment process. But we believe there's so much more that your company can achieve. John told you that in terms of growth opportunities, next slide, in terms of growth opportunities, that you must expand to provide an integrated one-stop shop user experience. And that's how you're going to be able to differentiate yourself from your competitors and gain more users at the end of the day. But Chelsea and Darla also told you that you have to be able to cater to a larger market and include aspects of personal interaction, both in terms of educating the market and in terms of reassuring them and providing them guidance in terms of emergencies or when things go wrong. Based on all of this, we are extremely excited to share with you our strategy, Expand and Experience, which we believe will take Wealthfront to the next level in the fintech industry. Now, there are 2 arms of this strategy. Our first arm, Expand, deals with the growth opportunity issue. We're going to go beyond the mere robo-advisory segment and provide an integrated one-stop shop experience while also gaining new customers at the same time in a way that's unprecedented within the industry. Secondly, for the experience arm, we're going to be providing that personal interaction that our new market is desiring from us, integrating it at the most critical points in our services where they're required. So let's zoom in first into our Expand arm. And here we want you to do 3 critical things to take your company even beyond the robo-advisory services. First, we want you to partner with employers, so like different companies, say Unilever, P&G, etc. Next, we want you to partner with payment companies. So for example, your different payment companies like PayPal, etc., as well as the new startups that are coming up. And we want you, for both of these, to be able to have integrated experiences and integrated services, which I'll discuss later. But finally, we also want to partner and even acquire, if possible, personal expense management and budgeting apps like Mint and etc. Now, what do these three actions do for your company? They do two things. First, they allow Wealthfront to benefit from a larger consumer base. Because if you can partner with these companies, you can be able to get them to automatically have memberships for all of their employees. And the same goes for the two other types of institutions we'll be partnering with. And this will the impact of this is to decrease your acquisition cost per consumer, which is currently at around almost $1,000 per person, which is way too much. This is a much easier way to do that. But more importantly, it allows seamless integration all across an individual's value chain. For example, from the moment he gets his income, to the moment he pays it, to the moment he budgets it, by doing this, we'll allow Wealthfront to be there and provide value across every single step of the way. So each of these three institutions will have their own programs that we will be providing to our customers. So for employers, we'll be integrating your income stream with our platform. And so it'll allow you to directly transfer your bonuses, salaries, etc. to Wealthfront for investing, or even your 401ks. This is going to be negotiated with some of the with at least three Fortune 500 companies if possible, and if not, we can start with a lower level company to be able to work out individualized and customized packages to allow their salaries and benefits to go directly to Wealthfront, as well as a membership package. Secondly, for the payment company, will allow you to transfer income from your fund directly to pay off expenses. So our algorithm will automatically determine your most onerous expenses and debts and allow you to use your investment gains to immediately pay them off. In fact, it will even tell you which of your debts you should pay off first in order to optimize the money that you have. Finally, in terms of personal expense apps, what we can do is get the different data in terms of your spending habits, your budgeting habits, and your savings habits, and use that to inform the investment profile we'll create for you. So for example, we'll be able to detect, based on the data, how much you're spending, how risky your spending is. And this will allow us to tailor fit our profile to better serve you. So how is this all going to work out? Like, let's say, an on-the-ground example. So let's say I'm Sam, I'm working for Unilever in America, and let's say that at the moment I enter Unilever, I'm immediately given a Wealthfront account as part of my service. So boom, you have a new customer already. But when I get, let's say when I get the bonus, or when I get the salary increase, I can arrange with my company to have that go directly into Wealthfront so that I can start making money off of it already. After I invest and get some gains, Wealthfront can tell me that I can use those gains to pay off my college debt or maybe my car loan. And it will tell me which one of them I should pay first and how much of it I should pay off each month. And finally, even when I'm budgeting it, Wealthfront will be able to tell me, let's say my budgeting is a bit too risky, and or is a bit too risk averse, and it can adjust the investments and bonds in my portfolio to deal with that. Now, what does this mean for your consumer? Number one, it means that they get an integrated aspect, so their costs are lower because they only have to deal with one service that is extremely easy to enter into. But secondly, we're providing them data and optimization and services that no other company currently provides in the market. We think that this will give us a huge competitive advantage over our current competitors. But for your company, it means that you'll be able to benefit of the customers of the employees of the companies you partner with, of the customers of your payment systems that you're partnering with, and even the customers and users of the management software that we can apply. But of course, each of these things also works individually. So I don't have to be an employee of Unilever. I can just sign up for Wealthfront and still enjoy that payment service.
The second arm of our strategy recommendations is experience, where we allow your new age segment to actually experience the human connection throughout the services that you offer. This will come in two parts, where we first reassure them through the Wealthfront line, and second, we educate them about investments through Wealthfront Academy. So in the first element of this strategy, our Wealthfront line, this is where we boost the reassurance that we provide in our services. How does this actually happen? What we propose for you to do is to hire human advisors in order to actually provide guidance whenever your clients will have any concerns. So basically, there will be video and instant messaging options in your software for them to be able to contact these human financial advisors should they have any questions. And if there are any issues that they face with your algorithms, then these financial advisors can provide the proper adjustments that that they will need in terms of how the investment actually works. But for the second element of this strategy, or Wealthfront Academy, this is where we actually improve the education aspect for the new age segment. Earlier, Chelsea mentioned that these new age segment knows only the basics of mutual funds, UITFs, and bonds. However, they're very unfamiliar with investing itself, and they're unfamiliar with concepts like tax loss harvesting that your company provides. What the Wealthfront Academy will do is provide a web series that makes this so much easier through the human financial advisors that will be featured in this web series. So they will provide the human connection that these new age segment clients actually need, because they'll basically be holding the hands of these customers and understanding the concepts behind how your company actually invests their money. And now I'll turn you over to Chelsea to actually discuss the risks and mitigation and the timeline of our proposal.
So now that you've heard what my colleagues told you about our strategy, we hope you are as excited as we are in order to expand and experience. So how do we do this? In the first year, what we're pegging is that we'll already be beginning our partnerships with the certain employer companies as well as the payment companies, as mentioned earlier by Marco. We'll also be starting to launch the web series, as Darla mentioned, which is the Wealthfront Academy. Now this series, again, just to reiterate, it will be all in layman's term, so this will be super easy to digest for our customers. In the second year, we'll already be beginning our acquisition process for the personal expense management apps, and then we will also be developing the Wealthfront line, which is what Marco mentioned earlier. What Darla mentioned, which will be our human touch, wherein we'll have the actual human financial advisors ready for a video call or let's say an IM messaging. Now next, let's look at the risks and controls that we have identified. First, what if we cannot acquire a personal expense management company? So our control for this is instead we can actually negotiate a partnership with them with the existing apps already, or we can actually build an in-house app. Secondly, what if we cannot partner with the payment companies as suggested earlier? We can actually go and employ a P2P strategy wherein we will be marketing and targeting customers one-on-one instead of through the companies. Next, what if we cannot partner with the employers? What we'll do is we can actually focus on giving instead advisory services and consulting recommendations in order to have them learn more about how they can invest their money.
So overall, with these strategies, we believe that we will be able to effectively spread financial intelligence among the consumers. But more importantly, we'll be able to take these consumers on a seamless journey. However, to do this, you need to incur the following costs, which we divided based on one-time cost and recurring cost. A one-time cost would include, number one, partnerships with companies in terms of payment companies. Second would be in terms of the acquisition of expense management company and platform development for a video series. We believe that all these costs would entail your company around $1.15 billion. In terms of recurring costs, we believe that number one, maintenance of the web platform for web series, and at the same time, the salaries that we'll be giving to the consultants that we'll be employing as financial advisors would be the two cost items. And for this, we pegged these items to be at $5.55 million per month. But what's more exciting is that all these recommendations would mean additional $0.55 billion for the first year, pegging it on a par average of your company with Betterment Company at the end of 4 years. This would mean a payback period of 2.22 years, and at the same time, a return on investment of around 50%, even just in the first year.
So overall, as I told you a while ago, it's not enough to have a great algorithm or technical expertise. You also have to have a personal connection with your consumers or users, and you need to give them an integrated experience that truly adds value to the way they use money. And we believe that with our strategy, Expand and Experience, we've been able to do both of these. We've been able in Expand to allow you to gain new sources of revenue and new sources of consumers at the same time, lowering your acquisition costs, but at the same time being able to give an integrated service. But with our Experience line, we've been able to provide that personal touch that your market currently demands, putting us on level or even better than your competitors. We believe that with our strategy, we'll be able to take your company back to its leadership position. We're happy to take your comments, and we're happy to take your questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we can have the time, 50 minutes from the judges to throw any question you have for the team.
I'll start this time. I like your idea about the ecosystem and looking at the client's asset and liabilities. in terms of the numbers that you threw up, what sort of asset under management would you need to generate that revenue?
Could you?
Okay, so in terms of the costing, we believe that they are reasonable based on industry averages. But in terms of the sources, we believe that currently your company would have excess resources to fund these expenditures. Particularly when we looked at your asset under management, it's around $5 billion US, and we believe that incurring those one-time costs would just entail 1/5 of that asset under management to make these strategies come to life.
And is that going to be enough to surpass the cost that you assume?
Yes. Actually, for the one-time cost, the biggest cost drivers would be number one in terms of the acquisition of our payment management expenses. Second would be in terms of partnerships with actual payment centers, and finally in terms of the web development for the educational aspect of our recommendations.
Moreover, based on our timeline, we've allocated those big one-time costs a little further on in our timeline. We've started with the very quick wins that you can get, for example, in your experience strategy and some of the partnerships that you can have. We believe that this will be able to increase our assets under management even before we launch those big one-time costs, allowing us a better platform or a better financial standpoint to do so.
So just on the back of that question, so the biggest cost was the $1 billion acquisition,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And your view is you do it purely from a perspective of acquiring new customers, giving them better experience.
Yes.
Would it also translate into higher revenues per customer? Would it kind of, in terms of business model, would it mean something different for Wealthfront?
Yes, we believe that it would absolutely incur more revenues for Wealthfront, simply because if we acquire same Mint, which also has a freemium service and which also has revenues of its own, we have a huge opportunity to combine those with the revenues that we're currently getting and offer, let's say, bundled packages, etc. That would be able to boost our revenues. So in fact, even looking at the revenue projections that we have right now, that's not even considering those revenues yet. So we believe that the ROI could be even larger, so that was just a conservative estimate, if we took into consideration the fact that we'd be getting revenues already from those companies.
So overall, we can see two major sources of revenues for our recommendations. The first one would be in terms of the new customers that we'll be acquiring because of this improved platform. And second one would be in terms of the increased usage and at the same time availing of other services that our platform will now offer to our existing customers.
So, so the company that actually comes into the financial industry as a disruptor.
Yes.
Okay, proposing a very different model that is no human intervention or algorithm based, right? And it has actually made some success. Now it's not going as fast as we want to see. And now I hear a lot about getting into more close connection with customers, and now you start hiring relationship managers and people interacting directly, human interactions. So my question is, are we changing the overall value proposition of the company? Are you suggesting that the existing business model is not good enough? And the next question I also want you to answer is, based on the core technologies that the company currently owns, what is the product development? Based on what they are very successful at the moment, to actually help the company sustain into the future, because it comes as a disruptor.
Yeah.
So I will take the first part of the question where I'll clarify what your core business still is as Wealthfront, and then the second answer will come from Marco. So first, to clarify, the core of your company will still be the robo-advisory services. We believe that your company still has an advantage in terms of being the pioneer of robo-advisory services and still has that unique algorithm for tax loss harvesting, etc. However, what we did was we proposed for you to actually enhance your robo-advisory services through capturing that entire ecosystem of cash management in order to actually push this further for your for the not only your techie customers but also the new age segment that your company needs to acquire. The reason why we are doing this is because we understand that your competitors are currently winning in terms of an even bigger market, which is the conventionalist. However, in order for your company to actually win an equally big segment of the new age customers, you need to champion what you are good at, which is robo-advisory services, but champion it in a huge ecosystem that this new age segment is part of. Since the new age segment is actually involved from getting their salary all the way to making the payments, it'll be much easier for them to actually buy into your services by championing it as a platform that is a one-stop shop for all of these activities.
Moreover, looking at the personal connection that we'll be adding in terms of the consultants or like the financial advisors, where they're not necessarily, or they're definitely not going to replace the robo-advisory services that we already have. What they will be there to do is in terms of a guidance mechanism. So for example, one of the problems that that Wealthfront faced in the past was that when, for example, there was a slight downturn in the economy, people would start selling all their stock. There was no guidance to help explain why the stocks are working or help explain that you should keep your funds still in this fund. What we're doing is we're allowing your financial advisors to be there on call in case you need guidance or advisory, but they're not going to replace the core robo-advisory service. So what this means is that number one, we're keeping what made us super disruptive in the first place. We still have very low cost because those financial advisors are not going to be completely replacing the robo-advisory services, and we still have that transparency. And in fact, this was exactly the same strategy that your competitor Betterment used in order to surpass you. They started adding Betterment Plus, where it had a similar aspect of advisors being there on call in extreme situations, and that was how they were able to gain more customers than you were based on case facts. So we believe that we've been able to maintain that disruption but still become at parity with the innovations of the other companies. But secondly, aside from maintaining what made us disruptive, as Darla said, we're going to a whole new level of disruptive by providing that whole ecosystem that's all integrated at once. So we believe that we're still being disruptive, and in fact, we're pushing that disruptiveness forward.
And just to address the concern regarding adding more human touch into the system, what we've identified actually throughout the whole process is that there are certain aspects that our consumers are more wary about, that are more critical. However, we will be adding the human financial advisors, let's say for building relationships at the start or at the end of the process, not necessarily in the middle wherein they'll be the ones investing for our clients. Because this is one of the hindrances before, wherein our clients lost trust because of low transparency.
How many relationship managers would you envisage you would need to cover that?
Okay, thank you, sir, for your question. So for our assumptions, we pegged it at around 50 consultants or 50 financial advisors that we'll be employing. This is enough to cover at least around 1,000, considering that there will be 2 to 3 transactions per day that will happen in our platform.
And moreover, this is something that we can definitely adjust based on your comments and based on the needs of the market. So for example, we're planning to have it in a phased service. So like offer it to like some exclusive subscribers first before, let's say, rolling it out on a larger scale. So we definitely believe that that number that John mentioned is definitely enough. But at the same time, it's extremely flexible as well, depending on the needs of the market.
So question around again the partnerships and ecosystems
Yeah.
that you spoke about. I'm asking this question not because I work with a bank, but in general. Do you think banks also be a part of that ecosystem? Because while you have this nice idea of managing the budgets and all that, but most of the salaries or whatever, it happens through a bank account, right? So do you see that as an opportunity? That's number one. Second question I had was from a partnership perspective, what is it in for the partner, right? So let's say you spoke of Unilever. Why would Unilever would want to partner with Wealthfront, which let's say it's not a market leader, it's a small player, it's a disruptor, but it's still a small player.
Yeah, to answer the first question, and Darla will answer the second. So in terms of the first question on whether or not banks will be part of this partnership, our answer is that we're definitely not closing our doors to it, but it is not a priority at the moment. This is because banks are a little bit harder to deal with, I think, in terms of developing that partnership, especially as they might consider Wealthfront as a competitor, especially since they're diversifying into so many services. Definitely, we're not closing our doors, however. If we can find a mutually value-adding agreement with a bank, that could add even further to the ecosystem, because it could also include the ideas of savings, deposit accounts, etc., making it really value-adding for Wealthfront.
To address your second question on what exactly is our value add to these employers that we want to partner with, it's particularly in terms of the benefits that these employers can provide to their employees. So a lot of employers are particularly concerned with the welfare of their employees, and they want to show that in terms of benefits, they have very competitive packages compared to that of their competitors. So if these employers, say Unilever, are able to show that when you sign with us, we can actually allocate a portion of your salary to ensure that you will gain even more in the future through our partnership with Wealthfront, then we believe that this can actually make working for companies like Unilever more attractive. Furthermore, in terms of adding value to their current employees, we believe that if they can actually help their own employees in terms of managing their funds, particularly through this partnership, then we can show that these employers are actually very concerned with the welfare of their employees to begin with.
So, I heard that you want to expand, the ecosystem and actually cover more of the cash management workflow. Have you considered the risk involved, in particularly, the compliance issues? Because you are now expanding your scope, to payment, to cash management, all these.
Definitely, we did consider that those might be risks. For example, we weren't able to add it in our timeline, but we definitely would want to work with the government, for example, or to work with the proper institutions or parties necessary to ensure that the new services that we would have would remain compliant across all of these new markets that we're entering with. And definitely, with those partnerships, we want to make sure that we're still following the regulations, and we're going to be able to phase our process to ensure that we have that compliance and we have that abiding by the laws and the regulations to make sure that it works out.
Essentially, from a standalone perspective, the reason why we are actually planning to partner and at the same time acquire certain payment and at the same time cash management industries is to make sure that these companies are already compliant with certain regulations versus us building our own platforms or versus us building our own operations for these types of transactions.
And I think early on you mentioned that one of the segments that you were quite keen to attack was the younger demographic.
Yes.
As this type of approach. What was your basis of attacking them? Because their asset base is quite low. So how would you grow your assets with a demographic that typically doesn't have that much in the way of assets?
Let's talk first about the reason why we chose them. We believe that one of the great benefits that you can have with this market is their lifetime value. So for example, the fact that you're being able to be the institution or be the company that introduces them to financial management and cover their entire, let's say, cash management flow means that as they grow older and as they get more investment and as they get more assets, then you'll be able to grow with them as well. And you'll hopefully be able to lock them in simply because of the breadth of your ecosystem. Moreover, even though individually from a robo-advisory standpoint, their assets might be lower, the fact that we're targeting them across so many different channels, across payments, across budgeting, means that we have much more revenue streams from them as well. And finally, the fact that they're a much bigger market, and they're the market that's really going to be driving the fintech industry moving forward. A lot of the biggest startups in fintech are really targeting this younger market because simply the volume that they have and the lifetime potential really makes up for the fact that currently their assets might be slightly lower.
Again, within the partnership, again, when you get referrals, how about those referrals which are not from the tech savvy segment, right? So how do you convince them to sign up for Wealthfront?
Okay. This is the really good part of our experience strategy. We'll, for example, be releasing videos. So just looking at different industry examples, for some other financial services or some other security services, when they partner with a company to provide referrals, usually they also have partnerships that help educate, for example, the employees or the referees about your project. So for example, let's say with Unilever, it's a huge opportunity for Wealthfront, for example, to conduct, let's say, financial literacy classes or within, for example, Unilever's, HR development program. So this adds value to Unilever as a whole, but at the same time, it also helps educate employees about why Wealthfront would be so important. We think that, for example, employers already offer 401ks, etc., and other insurance plans to people who don't always understand it, but we think that it's still nevertheless become a huge value-added driver for them.
Furthermore, in terms of the communication content that we'll be providing them, what we are going to tell them is to what are the certain benefits that this platform would have versus your current investments. Because currently, what we've identified in terms of the behavior of this market that we're targeting is that they're actually into certain investment vehicles already. However, these investment vehicles are the more of the safer ones, such as, for example, bonds, fixed incomes, or UITFs. These types of customers are actually leaning towards or actually interested in venturing to more or higher return investments. However, the problem or the barrier that we're trying to solve is that number one, they're not aware of the process, and number two, they feel that it's too risky for their profile. So what we're communicating with them is that there's actually a platform that will suit your risk appetite, but at the same time will be your one-stop shop for all the activities that you have currently.
I'm afraid time's up. Thank you
Thank you so much.